Hey, hey! I am Melinda Rychlik-Clark with Empower the Yet, where I help busy mamas with virtual assistant services and coaching, as well as breakthrough coaching. I get a lot of questions about that, and help them change their family tree by empowering the Yet and helping them get really clear focused on what their goals are for their business, like branding and the like. So today we're going to talk about Abigail. In 2 Kings 25, Abigail was a very wise, generous, humble woman. And unfortunately for her at the time, she was married to Nabal, um, or Nabal. I've heard it pronounced either way. But bless her heart, he was just really kind of foolish and greedy and selfish and very egotistical, and just wasn't wise in a lot of his decisions. And he just made a lot of mistakes, right? And so, if you've ever been in that situation, or maybe you feel like you are right now, uh, where your spouse is just not able to open up and talk and be humble and godly and all the things. I think at certain points of marriages we kind of get that feeling, and unfortunately for some marriages that's the way it is. And so we have to really stay fervent in prayer and keep our husbands really close to our heart and be wise and humble. And just like Abigail was a peacemaker. Okay. Um, Nabal was suffocating, just overbearing. But she was really wise. And what happened was, David, so Nabal, and there was this situation where Nabal had like upset David and King David. And so, King David's accomplishments, there was a lot of bloodshed and stuff that could have happened. But because Abigail was so wise in her walk, she was able to calm David down and remind him that the Lord really fights his battles. And so I'm not even doing justice to the story about Abigail, so please go read about it. But I'm highlighting this to get to my point. But that God really fights for our battles, and he fights against our enemies for us. And so a lot of times when we're up against people who are difficult, whether they're in our family, outside of our family, coworkers, whatever, a lot of times the wisest thing to do is to be quiet and pray, and like humble ourselves before the Lord and ask for him to fight our battle for us and our enemies, especially if it doesn't necessarily directly affect us. And sometimes, you can't argue, you can't rationalize with the irrational. Okay. And so if you have someone in your life who is like Nabal, then you know what I'm talking about. It's hard to like even have a conversation with them. They think they're right. They're very arrogant. They're, and then you're dealing with somebody back then that, King David, he was a man after God's own heart. But at this point, Nabal was so foolish in that it could have really affected like a lot of people. And so, my message is that, when we're up against the wall and we have to make a decision, or we're put in a corner to like maybe defend ourselves or defend somebody else, don't act in haste. Take the time to listen, set that boundary and say, I just can't give you an answer right now. I need to really pray about this and think about this. And so going forward, I'm gonna have to get back to you. And a lot of times that will really ruffle some feathers, especially if they're a difficult person. But in your wisdom and strength, it could really turn things around like it did for David. You know, when Abigail spoke and she humbled herself before him. And you know, of course, if there's harm or abuse or anything like that, that is a totally different situation than when you're dealing with somebody who's just difficult, right? Their personality is a little rough, you know, um, they're a little bit feisty, you know, if you will, and so sometimes seeing nothing at all is actually the best thing. And so I just want to encourage you today that if you're in one of those situations, um, take some time to pray and ask God for the words to speak. If you need to, you know, have that conversation or kind of set a boundary in that relationship. So, but Abigail is a great encouragement to us as women to be able to do that with men who are difficult and with people who are difficult and with coworkers who are difficult. And no matter what the relationship is, being guided by the Spirit through that is so important. And actually, it will make your life so much more peaceful in the midst of the chaos. So I hope that was encouraging today. Take a read, go read about Abigail. And but until next time, remember, slay those giants, girl, so you can empower the yet and live happy, joyous, and free in Christ to change your family tree. Bye, guys.